The horror genre on YouTube has recently been flooded with a lot of cheap horror and overdone tropes, with not many new innovative series. But where there is good, there's always bad. And there also have been plenty of amazing series as well, one of which I want to talk about today. Hello everyone, my name is Noelle and welcome back to the channel. Tonight, I'd like all of you to join me as we visit the world of Lacey and all of the unfortunate events that seem to follow her. The first video, titled Lacey's Wardrobe, footage of a game called Lacey's Wardrobe. The game presents itself as a regular dress-up game where the player helps the protagonist, Lacey, choose outfits for various events. The game gives us 3 scenarios to play through: a picnic, going shopping, and a date with a cute guy. In the first event, the player picks an outfit for her to wear to the picnic. After completing the task, we get a completion screen that says "Well done" with Lacey at said picnic. But in the background, we can see a man watching Lacey from the forest. At this point in the game, we don't know if she's aware of their presence. During the second event, while Lacey's getting dressed for shopping, she receives a phone call from the same man who was watching her earlier. The man talks about how excited he is to see her, and that he'll be waiting for her.
Lacey, did you see my stacks, Lacey? I can wait to meet up, Lacey. I want to have a good time tonight with you, Lacey. Tonight. Bye-bye.
Immediately after hearing the man's voice, it raises suspicions about what exactly his intentions are. After the call ends, Lacey's face twists and the screen goes black. The third event takes place at the mall. The player chooses an outfit for Lacey to wear, and once again, a message appears that says "Well done." However, when the player clicks to continue, Lacey disappears, and a message shows on screen that says, "Please help me. He's going to kill me." The game then takes a dark turn where the player is brought back to the dress-up screen, and Lacey receives a gift from the man. The gift appears to be a bunch of blood and guts, but it is censored, so it's pretty hard to tell. Lacey's phone rings again, and the man on the other end speaks about the gift he sent her, wondering if she likes it.
Lacey, I'm here. I'm here. Did you get my gift, Lacey? Did you like it? I'm here. Open the door, my darling. Open the door. Open the fucking door!
The man then begins to demand that Lacey opens the door and starts to yell at her. Lacey pleads with the player to not make her go outside, but the player ignores her and continues to play the game. We then see her out on the street, where she asks, "What have you done?" Where we then see the man's true intentions were. He kills Lacey and says, "I ate her remains, so that we will be together forever. I love you, Lacey." We're then taken back to the title screen. Unlike the next video, this one's pretty clear in its message to the viewers, that she's being stalked and wants someone to help her, which would be the player, to keep her inside. Unfortunately, we know that's not what happens. It's apparent that Lacey is not in the best of situations, and that becomes even more apparent in the game that follows this, Lacey's Diner. The second video depicts a playthrough of the 2007 Flash game titled Lacey's Diner, where the main character, Lacey again, is opening her brand new diner. The game's objective is to take the items on the table and make the orders that Lacey requests. The game appears to be a typical cooking game at first, but it soon becomes apparent that there is something very disturbing about it. If the player completes the game normally, they can play through as usual. They'll feed all the customers and she goes home, resulting in a win. However, if the player allows the timer to run out, the game takes a dark turn. When the timer is about to hit 0, the game becomes very distorted. Lacey's face contorts and becomes unrecognizable, and the customers disappear. She becomes angry, exclaiming how it's not fair and that they should just wait 3 damn minutes for their food. She also expresses her hatred for all of them and how she'll certainly give them something to eat. The next day, Lacey puts terrible ingredients into the customers' food, including a used condom, cigarette butts, and a meth. As she serves the food to the customers, they all look malformed, just as she does. Eventually, Lacey's Diner is shut down, and she is shown outside, dirty and smoking a cigarette. She says, "This is it then," and the screen goes black. It then cuts to her dead on the road, with a caption that reads, "Bad ending." My interpretation of Lacey's actions in the game is that they are a result of abuse. The game's dark and twisted nature could represent the trauma and negative experiences that Lacey has faced in her life. The game may be showing us how Lacey expresses her pain and anger. The fact that her face becomes distorted and unrecognizable could also suggest that she has internalized her trauma. and does not recognize herself. Her anger towards the customers are a sort of reflection of her feelings of powerlessness and victimization. Lacey's use of these terrible ingredients in the food could be seen as a metaphor for the negative emotions and experiences that she has internalized. Or maybe these things have been used to hurt her in the past. She may feel that she has been giving nothing but bad ingredients in her life, and she is now passing them on to others. A wretched cycle of abuse that continues, on and on and on. The fact that the game has a bad ending could also be a warning to the reality that abuse can lead to very, very tragic outcomes. Lacey's death is a warning of the damage that mental and physical abuse can do to somebody. Now, I might be completely off the mark here, but it's hard for me to watch this and see it as just a scary video. I would also like to note that one of the ingredients is a picture of a man, most likely her abuser, but I can't be 100% certain on that, so take it for what you will. Alright, now that we've explained the two videos, let's get into some theories, shall we? Thanks to a member from my Discord, we can analyze the video a little further and try to connect some more dots. Also, yes, this is a Google slide, in case anyone wanted to know. One thing a lot of you probably thought as well is that when the timer's close to reaching 0, Lacey's actually starting to have a panic attack at the thought of being too slow. And that's what we're seeing here. Upon finishing on time, she returns back to her normal self after her episode has ended. This next theory is the one I'm really going to focus on, that being her uncle is her abuser and that everything we see is a representation of her mental state and trauma. That might be a huge leap to some, but we have evidence that'll corroborate this theory. To start off, we'll need to take a look at her mental state and what she might be a victim of. We can see that she is definitely not okay mentally just off this still alone, after she failed to get the food out on time. She calls herself a failure, that she's stupid and useless. It's also apparent that she has resorted to self-harm, considering the cuts on her arm and the knife in the top right corner. It is also clear that she lives in very poor conditions. There's more evidence of this when we see the images of her diner and the alley she walks down. It's clear the area she lives in is very impoverished, with graffiti everywhere all over the walls. It's possible that when Lacey refers to the diner being all she has, and that she's going to kill herself if the place fails, it's because there quite literally is nothing else, and her thoughts are a result of poor mental health and low self-esteem whilst living in poverty. Now, when time actually does run out on the second day, we see a more distorted version of Lacey. This could be a more realistic version of her, instead of the cute persona that is displayed in the games. A more accurate representation of a girl who gives everything, but has nothing. It's possible that the person who created these games is using Lacey as a character that she can play that lives a happy and normal life, but as it always does, their trauma creeps its way in, affecting her world and Lacey's. When looking at the imagery, it becomes clear that Lacey is in a very bad place mentally and most likely physically as well. Now that we can see the state of her mentally, we can talk about why we think her uncle is abusive towards her. When looking at the items she puts into the food towards the second half of the video, they're accompanied by text that gives more context to them. We're going to lump the picture of the man and the used condom together here as they're the most important. The condom has text that mentions her bruised cheeks and that they were the same size as his hand, and that screams were inaudible to him. This tells us that he definitely has abused her, and has most likely raped her too. The picture of the man titled UN, which we're confident is short for uncle, is the last ingredient. It's possible that after all of the stuff he did to her, she decided before she died, she had to take him with her, and so she killed him and cooked him into food to serve to the customers. So that's it for the theory so far. Huge thanks to Lucy from my Discord. She was a huge help in making this, and it would have taken way longer had I done it myself. There's so much content in these two videos, and there's a lot of stuff that I didn't even mention, so feel free to check out the slides yourself and see if you find something that we missed. Also, let me just say, Ghost Tundra has done a great job so far with these videos. I don't know if they plan to make more, but either way, they are very talented, so go make sure to subscribe to them. Their other content is just as good, so I highly suggest checking them out. Their links will be in the description like always. And that's all for now. As always, have a great rest of your day, and see you later.